Hey, Ali, thanks for your work in week 10. Just want to reply real quick to what you were developing in terms of reading the words of what we have as chapter 13, 1 to 7, in the flow of what Paul is teaching in Romans 12. And I think what I wanted to add to what you were saying in your explanation of it, which I think is on the right track, is that I don't think that being subject to authorities in the way that Paul teaches is some kind of concession to a difficult situation that the audience is facing and sort of just the way we have to be for now. It strikes me as far more integral to the whole vision of a life of neighborliness in the social fabric, especially beyond the immediate life of the community that he's writing to. That starts in 12:14. Um, so being subject to authorities in a certain way, which is not being submissive, but it's sort of exhibiting a kind of respect for the authorities that govern a social fabric rather than flagrantly kind of flouting those authorities or treating them with bitterness or disdain. Um, it's possible to be subject in this way and to be basically conducting a kind of steady rebellion. And I think that's part of the point. So that's the other thing I want to say is I think that this way of engaging the social fabric for Paul, including, magistrates, other Roman officers and authorities in Rome and beyond, is actually part of the Christian witness and part of how the Christian community is an agent of change. When people treat authorities when they're corrupt with a certain kind of respect, it can actually act to expose their injustice even more than otherwise would happen. And it can be a sort of vehicle that undermines their power to the extent that they continue to rule hypocritically, unjustly, where that Christian community is living. So I think this is actually a way of bringing down powers like Rome, but doing it, you might say, organically, with the actual distribution of power and not with a kind of upsurge of violence that tries to decapitate the existing regime and replace it with a better one or something. That I don't think Paul thinks is messianic at all. Um, so that's, I guess, just key for understanding what Paul is teaching in Romans 13. And I guess I would say this is why he's saying we want to regard these authorities, however corrupt they might be, as not escaping God's purpose, as somehow serving God, as somehow encouraging good living, discouraging bad living. Obviously, that doesn't hold up, in every situation. We could overgeneralize and expect this to be always true in every instance. If it were, Jesus wouldn't have gotten crucified and Paul had never been in jail. So governments don't always reward the good and punish evil. Sometimes they punish the good and reward evil. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there's still a, moderately general sense in which um, authorities can act as a check on certain kinds of bad behavior that tears at the social fabric, and that um, this should, for Paul and his audience, move us to relate to authorities that we might be apt to despise with a certain respect, and to do that actually as a way of resisting their authority rather than thinking that we could resist better by sort of rising up um, against them violently, sort of proudly. And I think that Paul's understanding that this is not actually how bad power is overcome or dissolved. You might, take a regime down, but you haven't changed the underlying structures and social fabric. And so you're just going to produce another one that's very much like the one that you took down. So that's how I would try to unpack a little bit further what you're scratching at, I think, about Romans 13. So I hope that's helpful. Um, Hope you have a good rest of the summer. Sorry we didn't see you in week 10. I know you're busy over there on the west side, so hope our paths are going to cross again soon, that you enjoyed the course.